Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you're watching me share this video or hear me and I share a video, make sure it goes viral so that the entire world sees the truth. The truth is finally on your door and it is on your doorstep. And Pempi, it's been a long time you hear this non-Muslims go like they attack the marriage of the prophet. They go like your prophet married 6 years old girl and so forth and so on. But most of these non-Muslims, Hausa, Christians and Jews don't know that deep down in their tradition, in their culture, in their religious books, these things are there. It is found in there. And also in the West today, until today, till tomorrow, child marriages are acceptable in their books. But before we go on to that, let me brush through certain things before we cross-check sources and evidences that will be bringing them out from their own books, so that anytime they have a dialogue with you, you pinpoint those evidences to them. Let them come out and deny these evidences if they are not in their books. Let me tell you something. The criteria for marriage and age of puberty has always varied in terms of years, period, and time, and also geographically. Now, let's take things one after the other. But before then, there is this hadith from Sunan Tirmizi, after hadith number 1109 in Sunan al-Kubra, volume 1, page number 320, where Imam Tirmizi and Bayhaqi narrated this, that Sayyidatuna Aisha said that if a girl turns 9 and experiences menstruation, then she's regarded to be a woman. Now, before we understand this hadith, we need to run quickly to the Quran and verify if Sayyidatuna Aisha was of age before she was married. Now, when you read Quran chapter number 4, verse number 6, it says, وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَى حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغُوا نِكَاحًا فَإِنْ آنَسْتُم مِّنْهُمْ رُشْدًا فَادْفَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ أَمْوَالَهُمْ. Test the orphans until they reach the age of marriage. You're not supposed to marry anyone who has not reached the age of marriage. If you find them to be mature enough, hand them over their properties to them, and do not consume it extravagantly or hastily before they grow up. So it says, وَلَا تَأْكُلُهَا إِسْرَافًا وَبِدَارًا أَنْ يَكْبَرُوا وَمَنْ كَانَ غَنِيًّا فَلْيَسْتَعْفِفْ. So the rich shall not charge any wage, but the poor shall charge fairly. So not to go deeper, this ayah, this verse in the Quran proves that Sayyidatuna Aisha was of age. Even if she was married at 9, she was of age and she was matured. Now let's look at the age of consent of marriage throughout the history of mankind. Let's read from Van Bullock and come. In summary of what Van Bullock wrote, he said, age of consent throughout history has usually coincided with the age of puberty, although sometimes it has been as early as 7. So age of consent of marriage throughout history has even at times been as early as 7. So you don't teach morality based on your era. So far as marriage is concerned, let's move on. Age of consent of marriage, age of consent was familiar or tribal matter and only became legal one in the Greco-Roman Empire. The Roman tradition served as the base for Christian Europe, as well as the Christian church itself, which generally essentially based upon biological development set it at 12 or 14. So it was until the Roman Empire became the mouthpiece of the Christians that changed it into 12 to 14. It was initially 7 anciently. And even today, if you are to marry a 12 years girl, you are considered a pedophile. If you are to marry a 14 years girl, you have to be considered a pedophile today. But anciently, it was okay. But continue to set the absolute minimum at 7. And the absolute minimum is at 7 continually, even until date. In the past century, there has been a tendency to raise the age of consent, but the reasons for the change have not always been clear, and the issue has been further complicated by the reluctance of many contemporary historians to recognize what the actual age of consent in the past has been. This failure has distorted the importance of biology on age of consent in the past. So it is obviously clear that most of these Christians don't even know history, and they don't even have the mature mind to criticize the prophet. If this was acceptable in the early 18th, 19th century, how much more the prophet's days in the 7th century? Okay, quickly, let's go to the Bible and then also make researches with regards to age of consent of marriage in the Jewish and rabbinic literatures. Now, there is a commentator called Rashi. Rashi's commentary on Genesis 25, verse number 20 says, 40 years old, for when Abraham came from Mount Moriah, he was informed that Rebekah had been born. Isaac was then 37 years old. For at that time, Sarah died. And from the time that Isaac was born until the binding of Isaac, when Sarah died, were 37 years. For she was 90 years old when Isaac was born, and 127 when she died, as it is stated clearly above in Genesis chapter number 23, verse number 1. The life of Sarah was 127 years old. This makes Isaac 37 years old, and at the time Rebekah was born, he waited for her until she would be fit for marital relationship 3 years and then married her. 3 years and then married her. We didn't say this. It is from the Rashi's commentary in your own Old Testament and your own rabbinic literatures. Now let's continue. Now point number 2, there is one scholar who is called Johann Bustov. Johann Bustov, he also cites on Rashi that Rebekah was 3 years old. And he said, Rabbi Solomon, in his comment on Genesis, says that Rebekah, she was married to Isaac, but 3 years of age. His words ran thus. When Abraham came from the Mount Moriah, he received the joyful news of Rebekah. Isaac was at the time 37 years old. And then did Sarah die. The time from birth of Isaac to death of Sarah was 37 years. And Sarah was 90 years old when Isaac was born. 127 years old when she died. As it is said in Genesis 23 verse 1, Sarah was 127 years. Behold, the age of Isaac was 37 years at the time of the birth of Rebekah. And when he had waited for 3 years till she was fit for their marriage, he took her to wife. And one cannot say one is a wife until sex has gone on. So, according to this account, Rebekah was very notable girl at 3 years of age. But that a girl of 3 years old is fit for marriage. Note that at that time. And it's maintained very plainly in the Jewish writings, particularly in the Emek Hamalek. When you read the Emek Hamalek, it says that a female is not for marriage until she arrived at age 3 and 1 day old. In the part, Talmud also support this in the part entitled as Avodah Sarah. And the Sanhedrin says a daughter who is of the age of 3 years and 1 day is by being bedded with a man, lawful married. If a lady is 3 years and 1 day, she can have sex with a man, and it is lawful. So what kind of morality are the Christians using against Muslims? Morality based on 21st century? Morality based on moral standard of marriage based on your own opinion and your own feelings, or what? Now let's continue. There is another commentator who is called Daniel Chananmat. He also makes such claims, and he said Rebekah was also 3 years old, and he even went to the Jewish literatures and gave us evidences. And he said that she was 3 years old when he embraced her. The youngest legal age female can be married. And he said we should read in Nida, volume 5, chapter 5, verse number 4. And then Seda Olam Rabbah, Sephrim, it's also in chapter 1, verse number 4. Rashi on Genesis 25, verse number 20 in Tosafot. Then Yevamot in 61b. And also SV Veken Sechri Tov of Genesis 24, verse number 14. These are Jewish rabbinic literatures, which is accepting that Rebekah was actually 3 years old when she was married to Isaac. Now, notice this very well. We don't see this to be anything evil. Now, let's read from the Mishnah Nida, the M Nida. It says that a girl of the age of 3 years and 1 day may be betrothed by intercourse. And if a Yavam had intercourse with her, he acquires her thereby. One can be liable for adultery with her, and she defies the one who had intercourse with her, so that he conveys uncleanness to couch, underneath as to a cover. If she was underneath as to a cover, if she was married to a priest, she may eat teruma. if any of the disqualified men have relations with her, he disqualify her from priesthood. So, according to the Mishnah Nida, a 3-year-old girl could be married and have sex with, and there is nothing wrong with that at all. Now let's read another American academic scholar on Judaism. His name is Jacob Neusner. He says, and he made a reference from Mishnah Nida, page 5, chapter 5, verse number 4. It says, a girl 3 years and 1 day old is betrothed by intercourse, and if a Levir has had intercourse with her, he has acquired her, and they are liable on her account because of the law prohibiting intercourse with a married woman. And she imparts uncleanness to him who has intercourse with her when she's menstruating, to convey uncleanness to the lower as to the upper layer. And 3 years girls were even menstruating at that time. And you are here judging the Prophet ﷺ for marrying Sayyidatuna Aisha. Come back again. An Anglican priest who is called Herbert Danby, in the book The Mishnah, translated from the Hebrew with the introduction and brief explanation notes, it says that a girl of 3 years old and 1 day could be betrothed by the brother's husband, and he can have intercourse with her. This is it. It is on your screen. I didn't say this things. A girl 3 years old and 1 day may be betrothed by intercourse. Her deceased childless husband brother can acquire her by intercourse. And this is in your books. You find no problems with it. It is morally okay. But when you read the Prophet ﷺ married Sayyidatuna Aisha when she was 6 and waited until she was matured at age 9. In their days, 9 years girls were already considered as women. Now, Edward Henry also echoes the same statement, and he said, Orthodox Judaism has very permissive attitude towards sexual deviance. For example, Psalm 155b, it is permitted to have sexual intercourse with a girl 3 years and 1 day old. See also Yebomoth, chapter 57b, 60b, and Abu Dazara, 37a. Read also in Ketubot, 11b. When a grown-up man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing. For when the girl is less than 3 years old, it is as if one puts the finger into the eye. Tears comes to the eye again and again. So does virginity come back to the little girl under 3 years. This is in your books, not ours. Professor Joshua A. Fogel, in his book, Reading the Tractate Avodah Zarah of the Babylonian Talmud, he says, the tumor of the Zav is when it happens that when a boy is ready to cohabit. The Hebrew word Zav means, in the Torah terminology, the Hebrew word Zav, lit, flow, is a state of ritual impurity arising from abnormal seminal discharge from the male sexual organ. Here is what it says. And then it says, the obvious daf ended with R. Yehuda Ha-Nasi, accepting the view of R. Chia that an idolater conveys the tumor of Zav from the 9 years and 1 day, not just 1 day. When asked about the age, he replied that this is the age at which he is the cohabit and thus convey tumor of Zav. If 9 seems on the young side, it is 3 for girls. In other tractates of the Talmud, these ages, especially for a girl, becomes extremely relevant, such as in determining what constitutes rape or marriage by cohabitation. Even 3 years girls, a boy of 9 years old can marry, and a boy of 3 years girl can marry back then. So what is the argument of our Christian brothers and sisters in any way? Robin Greeley, he said, among the ancient Hebrew, betrothal by sexual intercourse was permitted with a girl's age 3 and day, and marriages for girls was actually recommended at 12 years of age. The biblical woman and child were property, not persons. Woman and child were property, not persons. For the right to marry a prepubescent girl, one simply had to pay an agreed sum to her father. In India, child marriage was condemned by law until 1929. Until 1929, although around 80% of the population was still practicing it. Now, Mary de Jong, the possession, she also said, the possession of the children by their parents was also given religious sanction in the teachings of both the Talmud and the Bible. Rush, 1880, state that the Talmud teaches that A girl of 3 years and 1 day could be betrothed throughout an act of sexual intercourse. Professor Giza Vermes, who is also well known and respected scholar, comments on the prepubescent girls. He also said it was also allowed. He said the Greek Parthenos could also mean that the girl was young and unmarried. In fact, in the Septuagint translation of the Old Testament, Parthenos was used to render 3 distinct Hebrew words: virgin, girl, and young woman. Already in the Tannaitic era, 1st to 2nd century AD, subscribed to further nuances, and there is no reason to think that all these were invented by them. Even the word Betula, which normally means Virgo, intact, when used by them, carry the laternal sense of bodily immaturity with the consequential inability to conceive. In rabbinic terminology, this type of virginity in a woman ceases with physical onset of puberty. The Mishnah, the oldest of the rabbinic codes, defines a virgin as a female who has never seen blood, although she is married. Mishnah Nida, volume 1, page number 4, or chapter 1, page number 4. The Tosefta, another early Jewish code of law, claims in the Rabbi Eliezer bin Hyrcanus, late 1st century AD, that such woman will continue to count as a virgin even after she had conceived and born children without prior menstruation. This is also found in the Nida volume, in the Tush Nida volume chapter 1, verse number 6. So in your books, these things are there. Let's continue. To understand this statement, we must remember that in the intertestamental and early rabbinic age, pre-puberty marriage was generally permitted. In fact, rabbis seriously debated whether blood stream found after the wedding night in nuptial bed of a minor virgin in respect of her menstruation marked her first period on the consummation of the marriage. Now again, Reverend Catherine J. Rees also makes such comment. He says, the longest New Testament passage on the marriage is found not in Ephesus, but in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, in stark contrast to the legal position and also expectation of the 1st century. Here, the risk and the responsibilities of a woman are held equal, although marriages were arranged by parents, often exposed their prepubescent daughters to married to older men. And this is in your books. In a Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament by Johannes Butterwick, Helma Rangeren, and Hans Joseph Fibri, it states that one might counter that the expression moha habitulot in Exodus 22:16 refers rather to the pretium virginitatis. In this case, the moha would be compensation to the girl for the loss of her virginity. This explanation, however, is unacceptable since it proceeds on the assumption that the term Betula means virgin. This may doubtlessly be in the case in many passages, but in Joel 1 verse 8, Betula thus refers to a married woman who had been possessed by her husband Baal. Betula thus refers to a marriageable girl who was physically able to cope with a man, taking her into his possession. Her term Betula says nothing about her virginity. Exodus 22 verse 16 to 17. Kesep Yiskol Kemohar Hab Betulot can thus be translated, he shall weigh out as much silver as required for marriageable girls. In context, we should point out that ancient Hebrew custom did not associate marriageability with puberty. And in contrast, the marriageable girl, Betula, Alma, refers to a girl in puberty capable of conception. Girls could, in fact, already be given long before marriage's physical maturity, perhaps as young as 5 years old. Leviticus 27 verse number 5. And did not happen that it did happen that marriages were already consummated with prepubescent girls. And when you read Zeeves Williams Falk, there are more and more facts that I can be bringing you. Zee Williams, he also says that a more common practice was the marrying of minor daughters by their fathers. For instance, King Agrippus in around 41 to 44 CE. Left 3 daughters of this. One, Bernice, who was 16 years old. One was married to Herod and her father's brother, and 2 were unmarried, namely Mariamne and Drusilla, aged respectively 10 and 6. They had been proposed by their fathers in marriage already. And Mariamne to Julius Achilles, son of Hilkias, and Drusilla to Epiphanes, the son of Antiochus, king of Commagene, Joseph the XIX Antioch. And it says, in such cases, marriages and consummation would be postponed until bride reached puberty. It was held to marry off minor daughter with her consent and not against her will. And this been highlighted many. And you can see T.J. Ray. It says in the Hebrew and the New Testament, marriage is considered the neutral state for men and women. Although there are certainly instances where Jewish men are rarely and rarely Jewish women are not married. This is the exception rather than norm. Most women marry quite young, usually soon after the onset of menstruation, which of course heralds fertility. Men typically marry later in the 20s or even 20s, and most men are older than their wives. So this is not we who are saying this. Age of consent of marriage has been talked about on many grounds. So in Harry L. Taboni says that BC, the book of Genesis says that after few generations, Abraham's progeny had grown to sizable numbers. That's understandable considering the practice of multiple wives and marriages just after puberty for girls. Abraham's many sons could father thousands of children, considering ample girls available for the native of the Canaan. So when a girl menstruates, she's ready for marriage. And similar the situation of Sayyidatuna Aisha. Why isn't this a problem? But with the Prophet, it becomes a problem. Are you guys really arguing? When you read Encyclopedia of the Jewish Diaspora, Origins and Experience and Culture by Professor Mark Avrum Ehrlich, he writes, girls were often married to their uncle on their father's side or to their cousins in order to secure the family capital and the hope that their king will take good care of them. Minor girls were betrothed by their fathers by kiddushin, a legal binding commitment, even before they came of age, and usually began living with their husbands occasionally much older than them at the age of puberty. This is in your books. If you have problems with us, be having problems with your own books. So this is simple things that we are teaching you or bringing them out. If the Prophet ﷺ had married a lady who was 9 years old and has consummated her, it is because it was the norm of the day back then. And I will urge you Christians and non-Muslims to at least update your knowledge a little bit instead of coming out to be showcasing your hate around. Remember that you are a Christian, you believe in judgment, and there will be judgment day. What if you meet God and they ask you, why are you criticizing him when your fellow Christians have done so, when your fellow Jewish rabbi has done so, when your scholars have done so in their early books? Think about that. Akulu Koli Haza. Donate to support us. We are working on building our Islamic studio for the Ummah in Ghana. We don't have a studio, a huge one where ulamas can flow through to be coming and be doing dawah all the time. We want to have a platform like that. We've started this already. We've had about 2,000 blocks. We have about 20 bags of cement. We have about we have 1 trip of stones and 1 trip of sand, smooth sand. We are still looking for your support to be able to build this platform. Donate to help us so that we can start building. May Allah bless you and reward you. This will be Sadaqatul Jariyah for you and for us and for the entire families. May Allah bless and reward you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Explore the world with Miran Travel and Tours. For your passport, for your visa, for your birth set, for your ticket, everything booked. Jet. My brother, Canada, USA, Japan, Europe, Dubai, UAE, Arab Gulf, and him fana obeko. Contact Miran Travel and Tours 054 653 7630 054 653 7630 or WhatsApp and then normal call. Your office, Ewatema. Contact them and talk to them, inshallah.